about 70 or so bloods in the hallway. I couldn't even leave my room. The guy
He was murder Mase, and now he's just Mase. People forget what they say and how they say it.
Mase just went savage on Gene Deal, issuing a final warning that cracked open decades of buried tension surrounding Biggie's murder. What began as playful clowning has now spiraled into exposed wounds and cold accusations about that tragic night in LA. This is brutal, it's personal, and it's a battle over Biggie's legacy with the stakes higher than ever.
the whole wave changed. It was like, this is what it looks like when a nigga really get on.
Mase and Cameron thought they were just having fun. On their show, they started roasting Gene Deal, the man who was supposed to be protecting Biggie on the night he was gunned down in Los Angeles. Cameron even got up and acted out the scene in slow motion, pretending to freeze with an invisible pistol in his hand. Mase leaned back, shaking his head, saying, "That had to be the quietest gun on the West Coast that night." The audience broke down laughing, and even the crew behind the cameras couldn't hold it in.
People that know me know, they like, yeah, this nigga Mase played too much, bro. So he kind of got Sham. I'm looking at Sham like.
But underneath the comedy, the shots were personal. They weren't just clowning a random moment in history. They were putting a spotlight on Gene's role that night, a role people have been questioning for decades. When Biggie's life was taken, not a single shot came back from the people hired to protect him. Mase and Cam turned that silence into the punchline of their show, and the internet ate it up. Within hours, everyone wanted to know the same thing. How would Gene Deal respond? Because if there's one man who doesn't let his name get dragged without a fight, it's him.
Mase knew what he was doing. He was trying to divert what really happened, because I had made a statement is that why he told Puff what those guys from California told him about wanting to kill Big and wanting to get at Puff over that incident that happened at their video shoot in New York.
And respond he did. Gene didn't crack a smile, he didn't throw back a joke. He came with cold, heavy words that shut the laughter down quick. In his own fiery response, he said, "If he's telling the mother truth, then call me a lie." He wasn't just defending himself, he was challenging Mase head on, daring him to put real names behind the stories he was telling.
Halfway down the block, crossed the light, and then when the first shot went off, our driver took straight off. I'm screaming at our driver because he was told that somebody was pointing a gun at Big and them. He should have just threw the car in reverse. He knew the whole story, my man. Prior to him, even the LAPD officer that was right there, they was right behind. Paul was outside the car. Why didn't they shoot? Why when we turned back around?
Gene took it even further. He asked the question that flipped the whole situation upside down. "Why weren't you at the party, Mase?" That single line hit like a punch in the gut. Because if Mase wasn't even there when the shots rang out, what gave him the right to clown Gene for how he handled it? And more than that, Gene's words planted a seed of doubt in the minds of fans. What did Mase know before that night? And why wasn't he in the same room as his label mate when it mattered most?
It wasn't because Big wasn't my principal. And he knew the fact that we had blew the light. And we was halfway down the block.
And that's what makes this clash so raw. It's not just old wounds reopening. It's two men fighting over history itself. Because when you're talking about the death of the notorious BCG, you're not just telling a story. You're shaping a piece of hip-hop legacy. And Gene Deal wasn't about to let Mase turn his silence into a punchline without firing back. With a warning of his own.
I'm gonna go back to New York.
I actually was trapped in a hotel.
Now I want to ask a question. What do you mean trapped?
It was about probably like 70 or so bloods in the hallway. I couldn't even leave my room.
Mase finally broke his silence about what he went through the night Biggie was murdered. And trust me, his version doesn't sound like a rap superstar's life. It sounds like a straight-up horror film. According to him, he wasn't in the middle of the chaos outside. He was trapped inside a Los Angeles hotel room, in the dark, with death waiting just beyond his door.
They coming back. When we get back to the car. No.
He claimed nearly 70 Bloods had filled the hallway, stomping and scheming, hunting down anybody tied to Bad Boy. Every creak in that hallway felt like a countdown. He said he could hear muffled voices, sinister laughter, and worst of all, the rattle of his own door handle, like somebody testing whether it was locked. That wasn't paranoia. That was survival mode kicking in.
Actually, after Big got killed, they was probably looking for more Bad Boy artists. And I couldn't even leave the room till Gene Dill, the officer had to come get me.
Yeah.
Inside the room, Mase went dead silent. He killed the lights, pulled the curtains shut, even ignored the phone buzzing off the hook. He barely breathed. His only weapon was silence. He wasn't rapping, he wasn't clowning, he wasn't Harlem's flashy golden boy anymore. He was just a man hiding in the shadows, hoping a thin wooden door would be enough to keep the wolves out.
He knew the whole story, my man. Prior to him even coming back to New York.
And here's the thing, as chilling as that story is, Gene Deal wasn't impressed. In fact, it only made him angrier. Because to Gene, Mase's so-called hotel horror story was nothing but proof that he was hiding while everyone else was outside taking risks.
At their video shoot in New York, when their Vans and Winnebagos was shot up, why didn't he tell Big?
Gene came right back swinging. He accused Mase of knowing that trouble was coming. He swore Mase had gotten word about how hot LA was that weekend. And instead of warning Biggie, instead of warning anyone, Mase simply skipped the party altogether. That's not where Gene stopped. He put Mase on blast for another move that made zero sense in enemy territory. He said Mase and Stevie J had been throwing up West Coast gang signs earlier in the trip, trying to blend in or maybe look tough. But to Gene, that was reckless to the point of stupidity. Los Angeles wasn't Harlem. Playing with signs, flashing symbols you didn't earn in a city with rules you don't understand. That's like juggling fire with gasoline in your pockets.
They just wanted Big and Puff. The crowd was against them. The niggas that he was around them, they just wanted Big and Puff. I was like, yeah? I said, did you tell Big them? Did you tell Puff them? You know, so I know him and Puff had a conversation about the game and everything, what happened and all like that. But I don't know if him and Big had the conversation.
Then came Gene's heaviest accusation yet. He said Mase actually told Puff about the threats he'd been hearing, but never said a single word to Biggie. Let that sink in. If that's true, it means Mase kept the danger to himself and left Biggie walking blind into the very trap that ended his life. To Gene, that wasn't just selfish. That was cowardice. That was betrayal. In his eyes, Mase was never the hero in this story. He wasn't the loyal brother standing tall beside his crew. He was the guy hiding behind closed doors while other men put their bodies on the line.
But Biggie was like letting me hear his raps and go get girls for him and stuff like.
But here's where the debate cuts both ways. Mase didn't stay quiet forever. He threw his own shots right back at Gene, and they hit hard. His question was blunt. Why didn't you fire back when the car got sprayed? That's been the question for 27 years. If you're the bodyguard, if you're the man armed and on duty, why didn't a single bullet leave your gun? To fans, that looked like failure in its raw.
So he knew the story, bruh. He was trying to just divert the attention of, well, why security? So ask security. Ask Big security.
Gene didn't dodge the question. He said it came down to a split-second decision. Biggie's car was already rolling, the hit was surgical, and if he just pulled his weapon and sprayed the crowd, innocent people would have died. He defended his call, and he wasn't wrong. Think about it. How many bystanders would have been caught in that crossfire? How much blood would have been spilled for nothing? Gene even flipped the spotlight back on others. Where were the LAPD officers tailing Biggie's entourage? Why didn't they react? Why didn't anyone in Biggie's own car fire back? The questions kept stacking up, and the blame spread wider and wider.
Nobody else knew why the nigga was over there, but he would be like on the other side.
Right.
Just when people thought the back and forth was cooling down, Mase went full cryptic mode. Out of nowhere, he drops this eerie little Instagram video, pitch black room, his voice low, calm, almost too calm. And he doesn't rant, he doesn't yell, he just smirks and says, "Funny how people got all the answers now." That one line hit harder than a diss track. Because it wasn't just shade at Gene, it was a warning shot to everybody. Mase was hinting that there are still people walking around today who know exactly what went down that night in LA. And then he pushed it even further with the line that made the internet stop scrolling. "Y'all really want me to tell it? 'Cause once I do, there's no going back."
Mase knew this. Me and Mase had this conversation. Him and Tone is like this. He knew me and Tone jumped in the car and chased after the guy.
That was the moment fans erupted. Because what's happening now isn't just two men bickering. It's a battle for history. Gene paints himself as the soldier who stood in the storm. Mase paints himself as the survivor who saw the setup before it happened. One accuses the other of hiding. The other accuses back of freezing. And suddenly, the truth feels less like facts and more like a tug of war. And then Mase drops his so-called final warning. The promise that if he's pushed even 1 inch further, he'll spill everything. Names, details, the whole blueprint. That tease leaves us hanging with one haunting question. Was Biggie's death just fate? Or was it the result of choices made long before the first shot was ever fired? Like this video and subscribe to the channel to get more updates.